sucks. So you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we are combining trajectory and Ruchi on Fridays, and we invite guests that we feel that can enlighten us and we can gain information and spirit. And Felice just falls perfectly into that. I know she doesn't always feel it, but you'll see in a minute. And so I thought just Felice, that's what the interesting, Tzvi and I talked before with Aline, and again, how we look into those subjects, into the medical part of it, like diagnosis and how we deal with it emotionally, but also facts and what we do and how we operate with it. And then, of course, I always use resiliency and, the words that you feel comfortable with, how we use it. So for Carol, if she lost her husband also, she will use the same resiliency tools that we use when we get sick. And I just see it as a subject for all of us to use as we go through life. And why Felice? And Felice is a special creature that I know for many years. I see her as my mom, my sister, my friend, my neighbor, and somebody to look up to. And I will actually start with, and you're a great storyteller, and I always love hearing your stories because it's always with humor and light. And we always talk about, fine, we go downstairs and we'll take a walk, but with Felice, it's always with, I want you to share with everyone this, how you see the world and how we little people in the big globe, it always makes me feel much better. So I want you to share it with all of us.
Aileen needs to move. Her face is not in the middle.
Aline, your face is not in the middle.
We're looking at the clock.
Oh my God. Okay, Aline, just move to Mal, it's okay? So yeah. I will just start with, Felice, you will tell us about your diagnosis, but I will also, and I will go, we'll ask you a lot of questions, but I would start with the end. When we promoted Felice and we said that Felice is joining us today for discussion, the email said, Dr. Felice Perlman, which I caught the word doctor, and I asked Aline, take out the word doctor, because Felice, even though she is a psychiatrist, she would not like to be called a doctor.
Who said that? Wait a minute.
See, now look at the end of it, and then I did not know you were a Harvard student until 10 years in. I met you, you didn't say, hey, by the way, I'm Dr. Perlman and I have a degree from Harvard Medical School. I never knew that about you. Never mind. So we took out the doctor, but we kept the word cancer survivor. So yesterday, Felice said, the word survivor. Start with that, Felice. You're not a survivor. What are you?
Then I saw you substituted today warrior.
No, I didn't, did I?
Somebody put in warrior today.
No.
I'm like, I don't know. I mean, Svea, you and I haven't met, but I've heard so much about you. So and I know that there are other people here who've probably had their experiences with cancer. I don't know. I was telling Yael, I mean, I have an aversion to the notion of survivor, which was, I think, replacement for victim. And then the warrior thing, what can I say? I mean, for me, the best way I could think about it is this is something biological in my body. There are these little cells, they're kind of trying to do their own thing. They're not actually, they're not intending to cause me problems, but they may. And, I try to it's more like, maybe like taming more than surviving or warring on, just sort of make peace with or find some way that we can live together. Because, my basic goal is to live as long as I can, and feeling good. But the idea, I don't know, the idea of being a warrior.
I'm with you. I don't like the survivor, because I'm not survivor right now. I'm living my life to the fullest that I can and making the most out of it. Warriors I prefer, because it's about continue fighting it and continuing to make a stand that I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. But you're right, there's got to be a better definition to it. We kind of coexist with cancer, right?
We can or cannot?
We can, and we find a way to coexist with cancer. So we have a new partner in life.
I mean, our bodies are constantly dealing with cancer cells, and most of the time have ways of dealing with it. I thought these are people who are not called having cancer, you know, so it's our own immune systems have a relationship to this. So,
Well, and when I take my pills every night, so I go, okay, in the morning, I'm going to be okay. And that's it. So I just tell myself that, and I've been doing that since 2008. So yes.
So Felice, when did you have your diagnosis? What year? And tell us a little bit about the facts, the boring facts, and we'll go from there.
well, I was going, I was scheduled to have my yearly mammogram or whatever, which I did, but doing since I was young. I have very dense breasts, and I'd had something that I'd noticed for a couple years, but it had been nothing. But then next to it, I noticed something, and then I thought, so I sort of moved up my mammogram by a month from when it was, because that's when I noticed it. So the radiologist called me in after, and he said, well, you see this thing here? It's spiculated. And I said, I'm a doctor, and I know spiculated is not good, because that's a way that radiologically cancer cells. So anyway, so then I knew I had this thing, and
Spiculated, what is it? Because I want to know that when I get
it's the way that the lesion looks on the X-ray, where it's sort of it's not just contained, it's like little stars coming out of it.
Got it.
So I remember actually the first thing I thought when he said that was, shit, I said, now I'm going to have chemotherapy, and I'm never going to fall in love again.
That was the first thought?
What?
That was the first thought?
That was the thought when I was sitting next to him.
Wow.
Then I went up to see, because the way I've always done it is I have the person who is my breast person is somebody that I met when we were both interns, and she became head of breast at Columbia and at Roosevelt, whatever. I can just recommend her highly. Her name's Allison Esterbrook. She's a real doctor. She's really something. Anyway, so I went to see her, and I figured, okay, but I also knew I had lots of friends who'd had it, and it was very small, and this and that, and so thinking, okay, well, I'm going to wind up with a lumpectomy and radiation. And she was going to do a biopsy. I don't know if this is too much detail, but I'm just telling you the whole tale.
No, keep going.
She's going to do a biopsy, and there's two kinds of biopsies. There's a little needle biopsy, and then there's a core needle biopsy, which is bigger. And even though I'm a doctor, I still hate needles. So I said, well, look, Allison, you know what it's going to be, so why don't we just do the little one? So he just did the little one. And now we're going into before Thanksgiving weekend. And she didn't call me, which concerned me. And I remember over the weekend thinking, I don't think it's a good sign that Allison hasn't called me. I mean, I figured she probably had the result of the biopsy by then. But anyway, so I went in to see them on Monday. And it turned out that it still was an early stage cancer. Oh, but the other thing that had happened was that because my mother had a breast cancer at age 70 and then had pancreatic cancer at 81, so, well, maybe we'll do a genetic test. We'll do the BRCA test. So she came back, and so I came in on Monday, and the news was I, in fact, had the BRCA gene, and that had implications for what the tumor type was, which is they tend to be more aggressive, and that I would, even though it was a small early stage tumor, and with the biopsy, I also didn't have any positive nodes, which was a good thing. But I was going to have chemotherapy, just as I had predicted. So I remember going home and just really, I guess anybody who's had this happen, I mean, it's like being hit by a Mack truck. You're just like, oh, the air's out of you. And I just wanted to curl up in bed and moan and groan and, I don't know, just disappear or something. It was really a lot to absorb. And then my friend Ruthie called me, and or because she knew what was going on, or maybe she'd even come with me for the biopsy day. Anyway, and I said, I don't know, I just want to lie here. I'm not in the mood. I can't go out. I can't. She says, come on, let's take a walk. So we took a walk. So that's, I would say that's my first suggestion for resiliency, take a walk. Which is something actually that I had been taught by a patient when I was a regular medical doctor. I had worked in Harlem for 7 years, and I had a patient, all my patients were older and they were poor people. Mostly they'd been from the South. They'd been workers and domestics, and I was working in Harlem. And this man named Frank Robinson, I remember him telling me once, I was like in my early 30s, oh, you know, I learned when I was young that if I don't feel good, the best thing for me to do is take a walk. And I highly recommend it.
I'm writing it down, Felice.
Take a walk. Yeah, just take a walk.
No, actually, I must say that jumping fast forward will connect, of course, the story and also resiliency as we go through COVID-19, because you've been walking since COVID-19 hit. You've been walking every day. How many miles?
4 or 5 miles.
So I think you're using it. So I'm saying I'm writing it down because will be, sometimes we just don't feel like doing things, but this will be for me, you get up and you get out. Up and out. So it's like not something that I'm going to talk with myself about it. This is, you need to do it to feel better.
Especially when you don't feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm writing it down as like, have to do. Go ahead, Felice.
Anyway, so I don't know how much of this story. So then, you know, so then I was in this state, and at the time I was also, was supposed to be leaving for a trip. My son's father, and that's a whole other story, which is my son's father and I never got married, but when our son was 14, but we were friendly. And when he was 14 or 15, my son's dad moved to Austria and married, and a wonderful woman and a wonderful family, and who just sort of took us in, and they become my other family in Austria. Anyway, he was at that point dying of metastatic colon cancer.
Oh my
So
goodness.
we had a trip planned to go to be with, we often would go there for Christmas. So my son and I were going there for Christmas, and I had planned a trip. I was going to a conference beforehand in Paris and going to see some friends in Venice. Anyway, so I went to Paris, and I went with one of my brothers, and I couldn't decide, am I going to go? I have to start chemotherapy. I have to do this. I have to do that. I mean, it was was any of it's been, your mind is spinning. So I wound up going to, I wound up getting the okay from the person who became my oncologist to just go ahead and we could start in January when I got back. And so I went to Paris, and I was with my brother, who hadn't been out of the country in 25 years. The woman he'd been with for 30 years had died.
That's another story.
Another story, had died. And I said, I'm going to this conference. Do you want to come? And he said, oh, okay. So we went to Paris. It was very rainy. So we went between going to museums, and then every day I'd come back, and it'd be 9 o'clock in Paris, and I'd be on the phone setting up my oncology things and my this and my that and figuring out this and that on the phone. But I was still really very head spinning, frantic. And then I got into doing a Satanama, it's a Kundalini yoga meditation. My brother would actually send me into my room to go do it, even though he's not into this stuff at all. He said, go do that thing, because I was really just revved up. And then one day it just hit me very clearly that I was well. My body was fine. I felt perfectly fine. And what I was suffering, the only thing that was making me suffer at that moment was my mind. So that's what I really had to address. And actually what I started to do then was I started to take an SSRI, an antidepressant, to kind of calm the spinning in my mind. I don't know if anybody, they're so common, I would imagine somebody in this room has taken one at some point. But
Yeah, my grandmother would have said tumuldic. Yeah.
Tumuldic, right. Well, it's sort of untumuldic. Anyway, so I went to Paris. We went looking for wigs in Paris, in the Jewish neighborhoods in Paris. It was an adventure. And then I finished the trip. I came back and I embarked on this chemo. And the things that I think that helped me through that, but I had one, I'm really interested in other people's experience, because I had one experience where I really went into a very dark frightened place. I think it, and I think that when I was there, what I realized is my greatest fear was that somehow that this was before I started the chemo, but in anticipation, that somehow I was going to be lost. Somehow that, not that I was going to be dead, that was another thing, but somehow the whole thing was like I wasn't going to be whoever I associated me with, which, you know, we know from Yael, who's a Buddhist, this is all an illusion, who I am, the I. But in any case, I was really, and that was very powerful. I'd always grown, my mother had been quite anxious about death, and I'd been always very preoccupied with time and death from the time I was a very little girl. I mean, I was just always, one of my major memories was being on the beach. We used to have a summer house, being under the boardwalk, looking at the sand and looking at it and knowing that, you know, this infinite number, I'm like 4 or 5 years old, this just countless numbers of bits of sand, and knowing that I could just sit there, and if I just kept sitting there and didn't move, I would always be there. But that something was going to make me get up and move. Like my mother was going to call me, I was going to go home for dinner, I was going to do something. But that if I only could keep myself from moving, then I would stop time, and it wouldn't. And I remember, and I used to say to myself, I used to tell myself, because I was always like thinking into the future, and I would say, remember this, but I remember one day specifically saying to myself, okay, remember this moment. I'm really telling you, I'm like certainly under 7 years old, maybe younger. Remember this now, because if you didn't get up, you would still be there. Mm-hmm. And I still have that sense that if you can, well, first of all, the time is, now I believe time is an illusion, but that if I hadn't moved, that I would still be in that place still exists. Anyway, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but somehow this is related to my feelings about life and death and dying and having cancer. And then the other things that were useful for me, somehow I came out of that dark place. Maybe it was the medication helped me, but the other things that were, the major things that were helpful to me in terms of getting through the chemo, which fortunately was, I don't know, for me, I didn't have a terrible, I got very anemic, and I felt very weak, and I had sores in my mouth and this kind of stuff, but I wouldn't say there was anything that was an unbearable kind of physical suffering from it. It was manageable. But the things that were helpful to me were, of course, my friendships. And what I did every time I would have chemo, the night I would come back from chemo, I would have what we called chemo salon. And friends would come over, and we would have a little potluck at my house and yak. And I'd been given steroids that day, so I was in a good, energetic mood anyway. So that was, and actually some of my friends say I missed the chemo salons. Like I didn't keep these every other week events, but they were wonderful. And the other thing was, my oncologist said something to me which maybe triggered this. When we went through, what the treatment was going to be like, and it was a 6-month process. At the end of our meeting, she says, well, she said, so now you have a new hobby. And I remember thinking, okay, you're supposed to enjoy your hobbies. So I just decided I would try to have as much fun as I could. And
Felice, I want to add something to what you just said.
What?
Because it strikes me again, just what I love about you is, there's the life that we arrange for ourselves, the life that we build is really what we're doing out of our lives. It's in our hands how we create our lives. So for you to have that community of friends that support you, but also because it's so much you, but also have the self-care. I get a diagnosis. It's very scary. What do I do to help me? So first of all, take a medication. You know how many people, as a psychiatrist, how many people will not take that help with all kinds of excuses or reasons that are not relevant right now. So, but we have all these stories in our heads all the time. So when I hear you say, first of all, I'm anxious and I need help to get through this time. So first of all, I'm putting myself on medication. Of course, you're a doctor, it helps you, but how many doctors don't do that? So I really appreciate the self-care part of your therapy or going through this time.
What was helpful also that well, actually, I had a psychiatrist that I was seeing anyway, but I could prescribe for myself, so that was that made it easier.
But it does. Yeah. Svea, do you want to?
Yeah, say something else.
Go in, no, because Svea wanted to know also part of the medical question about the medical journey.
Yeah, I wanted to know. I mean, you mentioned that you had a doctor that you trust. She referred you to an oncologist that you felt comfortable. But at any point, did you like challenge the protocol? Did you ask like, what are your options other than coming there and they're saying, okay, this is what you got, this is what you need to do?
Well, in the referral that I got from the surgeon, who was the person I'd known for years, she gave me a list of people.
Yeah, can you unmute everyone and then can you mute everyone and then unmute Felice and Yael, because there's a very strong feedback.
Yeah, somebody can just unmute.
If anyone has a question, you can just unmute yourself. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
For 1 second, yeah.
Yeah,
so she gave me the option of a few different oncologists. That was number one, and discussed them with me. And I did trust her. Now, she completely absented herself from the decision making, the surgeon did, because she said it was not her bailiwick. Mm-hmm. I had the advantage, I have a very good friend who had been a cancer research nurse. And so I did have a chance to talk with her about options. And also she knew some of these people that I was being referred to. So I think in that way I was lucky. Now, did I challenge them? I mean, I was given a pretty standard
care. I know.
Care. Sorry. Yeah, the protocol was, and I had actually talked to somebody. One of the elements of the protocol was adriamycin, which is the most toxic of the things.
Yeah.
And I did speak with somebody else who had been through it who had opted not to take adriamycin. But for whatever reason, Svea, I thought, okay, I could be for me to choose the knobs in my kitchen or my new kitchen is like a 6-month torture. But somehow with this, I just kind of made a decision, okay, I'm just going to go with everything. I had a few people who were saying this is sort of the standard thing. And, I looked on the internet, I researched a little bit, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of options. And the fact that I had, so I had discovered now that I had a BRCA mutation, which I hadn't known about. And actually, in retrospect, I was very happy not to have spent 20 years being anxious about getting breast cancer or ovarian cancer. But no, I didn't. I mean, once I got on board, once I chose the oncologist and met with her, and one of the things that talked me into the oncologist was that she called me up at home because the surgeon had called her and with my issue about I was supposed to go on a trip and this and that. So she contacted me before I even met with her and said, I know you're in this whole rush and maybe you want, and I don't know who you're going to choose, but let me just talk with you in case you want to discuss with me. So availability, of course, made the difference for me, even probably more than the specifics of the chemo.
And I agree. I think choosing the right oncologist and making a choice about the doctor, not going as a default and finding the one that you trust is key. But I mean, me and Yael had a long discussion with an unfortunate patient last night. And I think the other part is about when it comes to us being patient, all of a sudden we lose our voices.
Yeah.
We are afraid to ask. We're afraid to challenge. We feel we might sound stupid. We feel a bit, like you said, in a spin, and we lose our voice. And I think, especially today, because there are more options, and since standard of care does not mean that it works for not 100%, not 90, not even 80.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that's the mission we took upon ourselves in trajectory, and this is my also personal mission in life. I think what makes me tick is give patient back their voice, to ask what are the other options, to ask what is else out there, and make a decision. It could be standard of care, it could be something else, but you need to know that you have an option. You need to demand to know your option and not settle for just what is being offered to you.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. And just to say that, I was in some ways so-called privileged position because I am a physician.
Yeah.
I first of all knew the territory. I knew how people treat, I knew it from both sides. So in terms of losing my voice, that was not such an issue for me. But completely with you, people not, and doctors not stop. I think sometimes it's not intentional, but they're just so in their own kind of decision tree, and now there's so many external demands in terms of the corporatization of healthcare and everything like that, that it's hard to sit down and have a real conversation with the human being who's going to make the decisions about, who's the patient.
Exactly.
I agree with you completely.
If I could just
yeah.
but for one sec. So I think, I totally agree. For a week, and I was working at the same time outside, but for a week, all I could do was concentrate on something else. Because when I came home, then everything kept hitting me hard. However, I too found a voice, because I said, I live in Las Vegas. Las Vegas doctors, a few, not a lot. So I talked to a number of people, and I ended up going to MD Anderson in Houston. And the people there, I had been getting like all these, bruises and all kinds of marks, and no one here knew what they were. And the woman who opened the door for me from the car, who was just somebody who worked there, she said, "Oh, you have leukemia?" And I went "Oh my God, no one had ever said that." And she, who was just a person that opens the door and greets you, she knew. So this was the right place for me, because if she knew, then everybody else had to be good. And it ended up that it was.
Marlena, this is exactly, I want to add to Felice, it's just, we are talking about it in terms of trajectory and options, is because, even if I think I'm a confident person, when I go to the doctor, I completely lose, I don't remember who I am. I really want him to take care of me 100%. I don't want to know. I don't want to research. The research scares me. It's funny because when Tzvia got her diagnosis, she went right ahead, did the research. She said, I have it. Let's see what I can do. Me, I go into bed and, Felice will come and she'll tell me I'm going to be okay. And we're going to take a walk on Riverside. So I just want to raise this as more as a psychology here on the call, to talk about what happens to us. Strong women know what we want, what happens to us when we get a diagnosis, and I completely lose just take care of me.
Well, I think that this is something very, I know this as a doctor, when I used to, even as a psychiatrist, but in doing regular medicine, that when people are are ill or are facing an illness, they cope in quite different ways. And Tzvia, I imagine, is a take charge that you manage anxiety by,
Doing.
Yeah.
By do.
What?
By doing.
By doing, yeah. And, but the other thing is, some people, you feel you get into a panic and you really do just want to be able to trust somebody and be taken care of. And the unfortunate thing in our medical system now is that most of us have a doctor who's been our doctor for many years, who knows us, whom we trust to take care of us and move forward with those decisions, because everybody's always shifting. I grew up with a doctor who was like that, who I knew if I got sick, I could give up my need to be in charge or to do, because I really believed I knew that he cared about me, and I knew that he was very smart.
Yeah, but I would challenge you and say that when it comes to the fight for your life, for your health, you cannot outsource it. The need to let someone else take care of you is human and obvious, but we also need to face reality. This is our fight. So we can outsource this maybe to another family member or caregiver. We cannot expect a doctor, as much as he knows us and loves us and we trust him, to do that. He's not us. He's not part of the family. He has 200 patients he needs to take care of on a daily basis. There's a limited time that he has for us. There is a limit of his knowledge. With so much advancement in research and treatment option, there's no way he can know it all. And if we don't take care of ourselves and do our own legworks and find that option, and then because we trust him, we bring it to him to have the dialogue and make the decision with us, we're missing out on a lot. And we are putting ourselves at a disadvantage, unfortunately. We have to own our own journey. There is no way to outsource it completely.
But maybe though, that's something like what Trajectory does. I mean, maybe there is room, and I think there are such people, and maybe this is part of it, who see, because one of the problems is that when one is hit by this, and now it depends. Now, I was physically well, and I wasn't mentally compromised. But when you're feeling very sick, when you actually feel sick, it's sometimes hard to be, to own everything. And so to have somebody, and maybe it isn't the doctor, but somebody can do what you're saying, Sia, can be your agent.
Be your agent. Find an advocate. It can be Trajectory. It can be your mother. It can be a good friend. But there's got to be someone who is not your physician that helps you and take you through this journey and help sort up option for you, and navigate through it. Don't just keep yourself on the box of being 100% dependent on the 10 minutes you have if you're an oncologist.
I also, Yael, I wanted to mention something about what you said.
Yeah.
And so, for me, and I tell everybody I know, take someone with you.
Oh, yeah.
Because 4 ears is better than 2.
Always.
Sometimes once you hear something, your mind goes off and you don't hear it. So you must take somebody with you so that at least you get their whatever, opinion is of what that person said.
Yeah, and record what's being said. I mean, because your mind definitely is in another place when you're in the room with, it's too much to keep. Yeah, so you really have to keep.
There are no ombudsmen. There are no ombudsmen that actually do this. In other words, someone who, I hate to use the word you pay, but who can go with you. So it is a friend or a family member, and that person still has a certain, I'm not grabbing the word that I want, but their own certain way of looking at things. Yeah, their own mishigas and their own way of looking at things. Whereas a professional ombudsperson would be, and a friend of mine and I thought of starting that as a business at one point because we realized this.
I think that there are some people who do that. I'm not sure.
Because
doctors,
my issues are very different. I had a stage 0 cancer, and when I told my, you'll excuse the expression, shrink, he said, "Amy, aren't you upset about it?" I said, "No, it's stage 0. It was removed. I'll go every year." And this is now 21 years later. I do not have skin cancer, the worst kind, anymore. I didn't even know what I had. I was so stupid. The nurse called me up from the doctor's office and said, "You have skin cancer." I said, "What kind?" She told me. Of course, I'm blanking on the name. It begins with an M.
Melanoma.
Yes, that would be it. And I said, "Oh, do I need to take care of it right away?" She said, "Well, it's a life-threatening cancer." I said, "Oh, okay." And there's barely any cancer in my family. My mother got breast cancer at the age of 75. So and then I had endometrial cancer stage 1A, had all of my insides removed, and that was 5 years ago. And
These are good examples, Amy, which we all so lucky to have. I always say to my sister, we're going to get it. So it's just a question when and how.
right, and that's
So
what
good for you.
But what's important is that when I hear people, no offense, using the word survivor, and I worked with AIDS patients, and notice how I refer to AIDS patients as AIDS patients. They're not survivors, they're not victims, they are patients, just
Right.
like any other patient. But I don't see myself, I had cancer, but it was mild and I got it early and that was it. I have other physical problems that are my own mishigas because they're very serious. And this is not to downplay anyone's cancer. It is to downplay mine. And that's why I don't see, it's rude to me to say I had cancer and I'm a survivor. I barely had cancer. People who have gone through chemo, radiation, other cancers after they had their first cancer, that's cancer. That's
Yeah.
not what I had.
Yeah.
So
Amy, if you don't mind, go ahead.
but I'm going to pass because this is not my discussion. I didn't have it.
I wanted to go back to the mind for a minute because Felice, I think it's because talking about meshugas, maybe we also opened it for anyone that has a question for Felice. If you go ahead, you unmute yourself and ask a specific question on Felice's journey. But I would like to kind of go back to as you said, the issue. I love the idea you said, my body is okay and well. And my main problem now, because on the medical side, we agree that you had a very good diagnosis and you trusted your doctor, which you were right to do, and you went ahead with the treatment. And then you stay with your mind. So taking walks and taking your medication, how do you go through, recovery, we'll call it, not recovery, healing, and then where is today cancer? I'm a patient, who am I today with after the fact? How do you see it today? Where is it in your life today, Felice?
If it's, it's as if, to me, it's almost as if it didn't happen. Some people can come out of it and I'd be interested in, and say, oh, now I'm going to carpe diem and I'm going to, learn 5. It's sort of like with COVID. Oh, we're indoors now. I'm going to learn Russian. I'm going to learn Hungarian. I'm going to, clean up my apartment. But I've always been a person who's been sort of hard to mobilize myself. And I found that my relationship with time and with death, which is sort of to deny it. I mean, I kind of live as if I'm going to live forever. That kind of just came back, and that I waste my time as much as I ever did. So in that way, I didn't find it particularly transformative, although I think the fact that I am mortal, you can't, and I don't think this conversation doesn't have to be only about cancer, because for me, people have many different physical things that they confront. And a friend of mine just died suddenly yesterday, totally, out of the blue.
Oh, so sorry. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
May I ask a question? My name is Gabriela.
Yes.
Of course.
Are you visible?
No, she has video off. We don't see Gabriela. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Okay, because I can see myself in the little corner out there.
Oh, your video is off, Gabriela.
Yeah, I'm clicking and it says video. It has a slash. I don't know how to make it.
Yeah.
Click on it.
Just touch it.
I did, but it doesn't. Can you see me?
No, but we hear you.
You may see something that says enable video.
It says start video.
Yeah.
Start video.
The line over it is crossing is not changing anything.
Oh, never mind.
No, it doesn't matter. Who cares? You don't have to see me. Okay, so I have a cousin who has stage 4 breast cancer, and right now she is so weak that she's so depressed, and it doesn't seem like anybody had given her some food stimulating, for appetite or anything against the depression. And so really, she's convinced everybody in the family she just wants to die, and she doesn't even want to be, seen by the alternative, which would be something like immunotherapy. And so, what we think she needs is right now to be admitted to a place that they can just bring her health back, and then when she's strong enough, then join one of those, immunotherapy trials. So we don't know where to turn to because the doctors who were taking care of her allowed her to basically, they already called her to be a hospice. They already throw the towel on her, and I think it's really sad because they don't know what they're doing.
Where are you? Where you live? Where
she's in Sacramento, but she can go. I guess you can always take her to. We love to go to MD Anderson or whoever, but right now with the COVID and all that, and she's so weak, we need to know where can we find a doctor who will really know how to, get her back to life, because right now she's wasting away to the point that I don't think she's going to have any to live for a month from now. It'll be gone. And so we are in a hurry. And my cousins are saying, well, let her just die. Basically, that's okay. And I said to them, look, let's suppose somebody gets run over by a car, has lots of bones that are broken, and he's in a coma. Are you going to say, well, okay, he's in a coma, let him die? No, you have to take him to the hospital, fix those bones, get him back, and eventually his coma will come over and he might be fine after that. You can just say, well, that's it. Or if you see somebody with a cardiac arrest, say, well, okay, he has no heartbeat, let's just forget about him. You give him CPR, you call the ambulance, you bring him to the hospital and revive him. You can't just throw him away like it was disposable Kleenex. And so
if I could interrupt.
I don't want to hear it.
If I can interrupt for a second, I had that situation with my mother, and she was staying with me, and they only gave her 2 weeks to live. She lived for 4 months, but we brought hospice in because a friend of mine said hospice is not just for people who are dying. They really are geared for people who have these terrible diseases that eventually will die, but they're also really trained and do very well listening to you and giving you the help that you need. So it might be not that just use hospice because she's dying, but maybe they can recommend somebody who she could talk to.
Gabriela, how old is she?
She's 71.
Did she have all the treatments already? Did she go through?
She had everything. She started in 24 years ago.
Oh.
It was stage 4 then, and she's never stopped being stage 4. It's not like, she got cured and she's had a lapse of 10 to 20 years of nothing. She has had it from the beginning until now.
Zvi, I think that's your department here.
Yeah.
Gabriela.
One of the things we'd love to know if you have any good psychiatrists around Sacramento, because she's a combination of depression, advanced cancer, and she has no strength. She's just essentially in her last legs.
Yeah.
So who would be a good psychiatrist who could really, give her, even if it's through the phone or like this, through Zoom, what a good prescription, because she's also, she's also bipolar, and she's on a little bit of lithium, but unfortunately not sufficient. They're really like lower than, what's expected. So.
Gabriela, does she want to die?
I think that when you are, right now she's on chemo, she's something like tamoxifen, but she had a dose just a few months ago that was so horrible. She just wanted to die. She was nauseous. She was not eating anything. She was completely, out of it. And so she finally decided she's not going to do this. So they decided they're going to do her tamoxifen. But I know that when you're depressed and nothing seems to work, and now she can hardly breathe because she has so much pleural effusion that, she just wants to die. But I think it's because she's been mistreated. I think that she just has to be given some appetite stimulation. She has to be some psychiatric help with some good, antidepressants.
Gabriela, can I just ask you?
Some good nourishment to get her back to on her feet.
Gabriela, do we have your email somehow? Are you connected to Trajectory or Ruchi? Where are you?
So Watch, right.
Gabriela, hi, my name is Avital. I'm working with Svea. I'm Svea's partner. I'm the head of medical affairs of Trajectory. And we are actually here exactly for patients like your cousin, you said?
Yes.
So I would suggest that you get in touch with us and we can help you locate and identify any clinical trials or compassionate care around where your cousin lives. Okay, so we can do that for you and help you and help her go through that. Okay,
What
so
is the phone I can reach?
yeah, so we will. I think that's via. I don't know how we can do it, but we will.
I'll ping you. I'll put you now in the private chat. You can see the email and you can communicate with us via the email.
And then
And we'll schedule a call.
We can.
Okay, maybe I can explain a little something about her. She survived 24 years. Of course, she had a radical mastectomy. She had positive night and lymph nodes. She had a pleural, a little bit of a mantle of cancer there in one lung. And so that was 24 years ago. And the reason she survived, of course, she had a chemotherapy, basically tamoxifen, is because she's HER2 positive. She's a positive estrogen type cancer. And so the reason she survived is because she is in a strict non-animal product and no processed foods. And everything was fine until this early winter that I guess she stopped, getting this diet and she started getting weak. And so she started drinking cans of protein. And that made her bilateral pleural effusion bloom like crazy. It was like putting, Miracle Grow in the cancer. And she's totally destabilized in a very short period. But while she was on this animal product, non-processed food, she did fine for 24 years with an active stage 4 cancer. So, if she goes to a hospital in which they're going to give her some Sustacal and some IV, proteins and all that, they're going to make her cancer worse because it is responding to this kind of proteins.
Yeah, Gabriela, it's very important that you, Gabriela, did you see the personal chat that you got from Tzvia about information how to contact Trajectory and Tzvia herself and Avital?
Well, I have your email. But I never was given any, through the email. Mine is life_watch. And sorry. So I don't know how to see the chat.
Yeah, Tzvia, she doesn't see your chat. So,
okay, if I can see the chat.
I think this conversation has to go between you. Tzvia, you muted.
Okay.
So I think, we'll give you the number and we'll reach out to you, Gabriela. We'll find your email and we'll reach out to you and continue offline. There's definitely option, as Avital said, compassionate care, and there is also a psychiatrist online that can assist during this period of time. So we'll do our best to help you and guide you and help her and guide her through it.
It seems like, she's like essentially her last legs. Her family decided to just let her live, let her die. And I'm like, no, you can't do that because, she can live another 10, 15 years. Absolutely. And now with this immunotherapy thing, there's a great deal of hope. So,
Thank you, Gabriela. We are really here for you, and Tzvia will help you and Avital. We need to close soon, and I'm so sorry it took us time, but I think, I wanted to relate this conversation to life and death and the fear and how we are today with the COVID-19. And it kind of made sense to me to discuss that today, starting with the Felice story and to kind of wrap it up with, where it stands today. As Amy said, it doesn't matter if it's cancer or any other illness that we're suffering with. We are also living today with the fear of a real fear of death. And how do we want to, how can we, again, I'm using the word resiliency, but Felice, you use your own word. How about you wrap it up for us as a therapist and doctor and not survivor, something else? How can we use these tools? What tools do we use today living on this kind of fear? We do have a fear of dying and death. Felice, where do you put it in your And then, of course, if anybody has a question for Felice, go ahead.
I mean, I can't, I mean, I really have not figured out this situation. It just feels like it's something, I mean, I think this is beyond anybody else's experience, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, this is the experience of our era. So I don't know. I mean, I go for a walk and fortunately, and try to focus on the fact that I'm not suffering very much considering.
You want to give, Felice, you want to give everyone, how about we wrap it up with your tip to me with, you have this thing, when we had the refugee crisis, you said to me about the, do you want to give everyone that?
This is not everybody kind of gets with this, but my go-to thing when I have a problem is I think about not even if I were in a refugee camp, but I imagine when I was in a refugee camp. And then I imagine my problem, and I imagine that it's something that when I was in a refugee camp, I wished for, that I would wish to go down to my car and have a car that wouldn't start, you know, or that I would wish at the moment to have a contractor who isn't finishing something he said he would do, or other things, or that I would wish to be dealing with the COVID crisis in my comfortable apartment in Manhattan with plenty of food. And, you know, I mean, I try to turn my situation in, not just even in that it could be worse, but that it's even something I would wish for. Or a radiology nurse said to me when I was doing my radiation treatment, she was very cheerful, and she said, "Oh yeah, people ask me, how do I stay so cheerful?" And I said, "Yeah, how do you stay so cheerful?" And she says, "I just keep lowering my expectations."
Yeah.
So I
with
think
that, with that
and that's just whatever you got in front of you, let that be the thing that you, my father used to say, happiness isn't having what you want, it's wanting what you have. So, you know, whatever you have in front of you, try to make it something you want. It's kind of a challenge. I mean, it's not like easy to want to be in this situation. But
I also think that, like, I'm looking at your face and you're smiling as you're talking. Yael always is smiling. I mean, Yaelin, and I think that for me, I just have my dogs, like you have your cats, but you know, someone said last week, I think, that I am this, and I loved how you said, I wish, you know, that. So I think that that's what people have to do, whether you get out and walk, whether you clean the cabinet that you didn't clean in 15 years, or you do a project, and it's not easy. I have been for 7 years not able to drive. And I don't live someplace where I could just walk to. So I depend on other people, or, well, now I can't take an Uber or Lyft, but, you know, I have to have like things in my house. I've become a nester. My daughter thinks I'm a hoarder, but I've become a nester. And now I know the difference. But what I see, and when I'm looking at you, I just feel positive. Like I'm going to go away from today after seeing all you ladies smile and say, we're so glad to see you today. I'm going to have a great day as a result of it.
As you are the usual you always make us feel very happy, Marl. So thank you so much. And just to, again, remind ourselves that, yeah, if Felice didn't take care of herself, she wouldn't be smiling. So it's not the outside that will take care of me if I don't take care of myself. And some people want to end it their way. And I think it's important to also listen to those who are ready to also let go of. And that's another conversation, and we will have that, because we are not, we love talking about that too here in this group. And to wrap it up also with next week, Zvia, you wanted to say something?
No, I'm good.
But I want to say just one, I think that as much humor as possible is, because you talked about smile, as to the extent that you can find things funny, yeah. Because it is kind of, the whole thing is funny, and is, yeah, I mean, and really, what we are isn't like nothing really in the great scheme of things. We're just this little moment of existence. So
Right.
that, and also I just want to say one other thing, because I feel like I have to, the other thing that is helpful is examples from other people. And I know that that I had examples without even realizing it from watching what my parents were like and other people were like when they were going through things, not because they were trying to teach me a lesson, but just seeing. And that.
And but thank you for saying it, Felice, because that's exactly why we want to bring people like you to the call, because I want to hear it, and I want to take it to my life. Like, what is about Felice that I can use in my life? And it's so important. I know a lot of people on this call had now cancer and other issues and recovered and healing as we speak. So I wanted us to all hear it and see, yeah, what can I take? And not everything will be for me, but I look at you and yeah, why does she smile? Because she also, yeah, you are proactive. You're not passively, you know, if you told me, Yael, I'm ready to die, then I want to be there also to help you to die.
Well, please.
I will be there.
I'm holding you to that.
Yeah, you know, we do have a plan. We all live on the same street here. There's a few ladies of ours on the Upper West Side, and we're going to, Felice suggested that we all going into your bed, the four of us or whatever we're going to be.
There's my friend Anita. We've been friends since 7th grade. She just showed up, and we had decided we would die together, and we would be watching a certain series, but we haven't decided on the series yet.
Yeah, we didn't agree on that. So,
Right.
Oh, which ones are you considering?
Not Gracie and
It means we can't die yet, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a
I would,
long
if we
time,
can choose
maybe
that.
a long time till we can decide. We'll
Oh,
see.
so-
Right. I
Exactly.
would, yeah,
So
I
those
would
series
think,
may not exist yet.
right.
That would be my recommendation for now. Let's stay smiling, happy, and fighting, enjoying life, and have the death discussion when appropriate.
Well, I would say Seinfeld if I had to, but yes.
Yes. Oh my God, with a smile. Leave the world with a smile. As Felice says, we're just a little, you know what, sand in the beach, and we're so important.
That was such a good metaphor. I loved it.
So on that vibe, next week we will have with us a therapist, a psychoanalyst, helping us also through that question of, if we're already alive, how do we want to live? So and with the miseries, with the sufferings, with the joys, with everything. And you're a good example, Felice. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Thank you for thinking I'm an
Thank
example.
you. Thanks, Felice. Bye. Have a great weekend, all.
Have
Bye.
a great weekend. See you next Friday.
Bye.
So no more Monday, Yael, no?
No more Monday. We're doing only Fridays at 2 p.m. New
Okay.
York time.
Wow, that's a long time for me to wait. But
I know.
Bye, guys.
I know. But you know, we're emailing each other.
yeah. All right. Sounds
Take
good.
care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, guys. Bye.
Take care.
Thank
Have a
you.
good weekend.
Okay.